First, this material here, I have just made it the page smaller. If you make it a bit larger, you see the menu here, but I just want some space here like that. You can always click on the house to go back to the first page for the index and the schedule. So what is Linux? Well, most of the commands you learn in this course is agnostic. It will work on any Linux or Unix-like system. Mac OS is also Unix-like, and many of the commands, in fact, the majority of them will be the same. So Linux is a family of open source Unix-like operation systems and is based on the Linux kernel. And that Linux kernel was first released back in 1991 by Linus Torvalds. And you can see it was only a few days ago there was an anniversary for that. So an operating system in the software, it sits beneath all the other software on the computer and it manages the computer's hardware. That is CPUs and GPUs, memory, storage, and other things, and takes care of connections between your other software and the hardware. It's typically packaged as a Linux distribution or distro, as people will call it, and it includes a kernel and various supporting system software and libraries. Many of those comes from something called the GNU project. And in addition, there's a windowing system of sorts that could be X11 or Wayland, and it interfaces directly with the operating system and libraries, and it gives support for the graphical hardware and the pointing devices and keyboards. And in general, there is a window manager that runs on top of the windowing system. I am running X11, and I think my windowing system is GNOME or Ubuntu right now. I usually like XFCE, but I have reinstalled stuff recently, so. And this is the default one. There are many Linux distributions. Ubuntu is a fairly common one, and that's the one I'm running right now, mainly because it's easy, and also because that's the one we are running at the Kebnekaise supercomputer, so it makes things easier for me. And there is Debian, which is also very popular, Fedora, Gentoo, Arch, and many others. And they are, in general, free and open source, but there are also commercial ones like Red Hat Enterprise and SUSE. The desktop Linux distributions in general have desktop environments, though you can run it without it. And common ones are GNOME, Mate, KDE, Plasma, XFCE, Unity, and many others. If you're logging in with something like ThinLink at the various systems in Sweden, for NAISS centers, they will generally run either Mate or XFCE. A window manager together with applications written using a widget toolkit are generally responsible for most of what you actually see on the screen. So shells. I will only cover this very briefly, but the shell is a special user program. It's an interface between the keyboard and the operating system. And this, for instance, is running a shell. And it takes the command input the user gives from the keyboard and sends it to the OS, which then will perform these commands or actions that you are asking of it. And the shell we are looking at is the Linux Unix shell. It's a command line interpreter providing a command line interface, or CLI, which is the short form that you will see many places for Unix-like systems. We'll talk a little bit more about that. There are many different shells with different properties, somewhat. The Bourne shell is the basis of the Born Again shell, Bash, which is very common at the NAISS centers, and that is what I'm running here. You can usually recognize it by it having a dollar sign at the end of the prompt. There is also the C shell and the Tnex C shell, TCSH, which also is quite common, and there are corn shell and Z shell, and there are also some other ones. As I said, most centers run bash. There are many reasons. One is that it's compatible with Slurm, which is a batch scheduler that is used at most centers in Sweden. It is also good for scripting. It doesn't really matter for this course mostly what we're using for shell, but there are a few commands where it matters. So let's just say I'm using bash, and that is what is being used for this course. So why Linux or Unix shell? Well, the shell has existed for a very long time. The Thomson shell came in 1971, the Bourne shell in 1979. And there's a reason why it continues to be used. It's because it's very powerful. It lets you perform complex tasks, usually with a few keystrokes or maybe just a few lines of code. Another good thing is you can automate repetitive tasks or combine the smaller tasks to scripts, and that helps to make your work faster and more efficient. And using a Linux or Unix shell is fundamental for a large number of advanced computing tasks, including in HPC or high performance computing. Most HPC centers, the supercomputers, run some flavor of Linux. It's stable, reliable, and customizable, runs on any hardware, has a strong community. Many flavors are open source and free, and it has a lot of applications, and many distros are lightweight. The use of Linux on desktops is only about 2 to 3%. The vast majority of web servers, more than 96%, and more now, I believe, actually. And most mobile devices, because Android is based on Linux, and all supercomputers on top 500 run Linux. So there are many, many good reasons, and more than this, that it's a good idea to at least be proficient in Linux, whatever system you are using in your daily life. I am running Linux Ubuntu on my home desktop, and I'm quite happy with it. And I also do some gaming. You can see I have Steam installed, and that also works quite well. So that is that has gotten a lot better, because many people are usually scared of Linux and say it's not very user-friendly and you cannot do a lot of things. But it's true, many programs are maybe different, but you can usually do most things. There will be Linux versions of most programs, and you can do most things in some way, even if it's slightly different to what you're used to. So you can find a lot more information about Linux on the internet, of course. There's something on Wikipedia, and here are some links to guides and cheat sheets as well. So let's